All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today I have Beverly Wade with me over here on the far side and her daughter, Christie Thompson. And we are going to speak with both of them today about their perspective of being a mechanical engineer and then growing up watching a family of mechanical engineers, father, grandfather, mother, everything, and what that experience was like. And as a basic intro, my name is Celia Polman. I'm a mechanical engineer and project manager with Thompson Consulting Engineers, and I am super excited for our fourth or fifth installment of this Women in Construction speaker series. I'll give a little bit of background info on the two ladies today, and then we'll dive into questions with them. And then at around 12:40 or so, depending on how long we speak, we'll go into questions from all of you all. We'll open the floor up. Feel free to type it in the chat or the Q&A portion of the Teams meeting. Myself and Megan will be keeping track of that. You can do it along the way as well if you have any questions as we're talking. But yeah, let's dive right into it. Super excited. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So I'll give Beverly's introduction first. Bev is from Richmond, Virginia. She graduated from the University of Virginia in 1979 with a Bachelor's of Science degree in mechanical engineering. She did her undergraduate thesis in energy conservation in school buildings, and her passion has always been in the energy field. She is a certified energy manager, so it's great. She began her career working for a consulting firm doing energy and environmental studies, but soon realized that the best way to pursue energy reduction in buildings was to design buildings with efficient energy-consuming equipment rather than retrofitting equipment in existing buildings. So she changed jobs to become a design engineer at an engineering firm, Hankins and Anderson, in Richmond, Virginia, and later moved to Newport News to work for Matthew J. Thompson Consulting Engineers in 1982. I believe you were our first female engineer.
Right.
Awesome. Following in your footsteps.
And also the first person to get pregnant here. Not in the office.
Thanks for the clarification. And while at this job, you had your first child and switched to government work to work for the Navy Civil Services, giving you a better work-life balance. And you're still with them over 3 decades later. She's worked at Naval Air Station Oceana, Naval's Weapons Station Yorktown, and currently works at Naval Station Norfolk with a schedule of 4 days a week telework and 1 day a week in the office. Sounds pretty great. She started as a mechanical design with HVAC and plumbing as an engineer and became an installation energy manager. Found her dream position in 2000 as a project manager on Navy energy and resiliency projects. She still finds her job very rewarding and loves all of the advances in technology and energy environmental engineering. Still lives in Newport News, Virginia with her husband, Jerry, and they have 4 adult children and 4 grandchildren. Her father and uncle were both engineers. She has a daughter-in-law who's an engineer, and I'm hoping one day one of your grandchildren might be an engineer.
Or an architect.
Following the family footsteps. And now moving on to Christie Thompson. She's the partner and lead strategist at Campfire & Co. One of the founding members, I believe, if that.
Our fourth employee.
Fourth employee,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Third partner.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
She spent her career seeking to align design with strategy, bringing nearly 2 decades of experience in marketing and brand strategy. She's launched the strategic focus of hundreds of brands, including impactful nonprofits, award-winning spirits, and innovative growing companies. A people lover at heart, she's passionate facilitator, strategist, and creative director. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks so much for having us.
Super excited. So
a lot of fun to be here.
Yeah. And we'll be doing a lot of talking, but first I'll just say, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself, what you guys do now? I know I introduced you, but I'm sure there's some to expand on.
Yeah. Mom, you want to start?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I go by Bev rather than Beverly, but it's always good to say Beverly because people always always call me Beth for the rest of my life if I say I'm Bev. And so what I do now is I manage large, very large energy conservation projects for the Navy. And at the moment, in the last 4 or 5 years, all of my work has been on Marine Corps bases. The Marine Corps is part of the Navy. They don't claim us, but they are actually part of the Navy. It's just funny. They feel like they're a little one step above. But so the kinds of things that I manage, we used to look at when I first started in 2000, we wouldn't look at anything under 3 million. But now in the last 5 or 6 years, I haven't done anything under 20 million. And I have several projects that have added together where we've done different task orders on the contract and have gone over 200 million. So we're talking very, very large contracts that actually really affect how much energy is saved on the bases, when we're talking about potentially at times saving 20 to 30% of the total energy of a base. The federal government is the largest user of energy in the United States. And so we're the biggest consumer. So anytime we do something on this order, it's impacting across a wide swath of what's going on. I was just trying to see what else. I'm a project manager from the government side, basically the project manager for the owner, which is the government. And all of my projects have energy conservation associated with them, and now the big buzzword, resilience. And so my projects went from just sort of, oh, it's nice to have that project because it saves some money, to now it's mission essential because resiliency deals with making sure you not only have power, but when the power goes out, how do you get it back on, and how do you keep it on? How do you keep your critical buildings running? How do you keep the entire base running? And how, essentially it's the kind of thing that you could have a terrorist attack, you can have a hurricane or whatever, and resiliency allows you to get back on quickly and to actually be able to have the things that are absolutely important to your mission, whatever you're doing, back online as fast as possible.
And my work is nowhere near as impactful.
That's the wrong thing. That's the wrong thing to say. I just have a little piece of that part. Yeah. And everybody's work is impactful.
Sure. Yeah, we occasionally get to work with some impactful nonprofits. But my work is, like you were mentioning, I'm a partner at Campfire & Co., and we combine branding and interior design. So I'm in sort of like both components of like 2D visuals as well as kind of like 3D experiences. And my background is in marketing. I started in like an architecture firm. And so I don't have a background in architecture, but kind of landed in construction design, but did have some background in terms of growing up around it. Yeah. So now my role is in brand strategy. I help everything from basically the beginning of a project, kind of kicking it off, leading the visioning session, as well as marketing for our company as a whole and business development, sort of like helping us grow as a team.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. So,
and you've even done some work for Thompson Consulting.
Sure. Yeah. We helped MJT build their website and do some brochures.
Did the brochures of that. So, Mom, really, come on, give me a break.
Yeah, but so you're kind of in the marketing side, but you've dealt a lot with the architecture, construction.
Right. I have to know how to like speak the language. I have to know how to talk about it. I have to know enough to be able to sell the concept of why design interiors is valuable. And a big part of that is like connecting with other folks in the industry as well as from the client side.
Definitely. All right. Well, Bev, I'm going to hop to you first and ask you to tell us a bit about your experience being one of only 10 women in your mechanical engineering classes. And
right at that time. And at that point, I was, the engineering school was larger, but the mechanical students were 100. So it was 10%, which was like the largest percentage of women on the East Coast during those years. We're talking late 70s. Yeah. And I knew, of course, when I went into engineering that it wouldn't have as many women, but it really wasn't a thought. my father was a mechanical engineer, and I had gone into school thinking I would go into something in math or science. And after my first experience in math classes in math classes, I decided to switch into engineering based on the advice of some of the male engineers that I knew that were in my dorm. And it has turned out to be, going from being, I was in the College of Arts and Sciences for one semester, then I switched to the engineering school. So College of Arts and Sciences is about 50-50, men and women. And then you switch into engineering, and in the whole engineering school, there would be lecture classes I'd be in, and there would be 5 women and 150 men, so it was different. And but I really didn't think about that so much. I was just really interested in getting in to see what the engineering was really about. And I found that one thing that was disconcerting is that I was always feeling like every guy in the class had put together and taken apart his car, and his engine. And, I was thinking, they picked mechanical, so they must be really mechanical. And I picked mechanical because they made me pick my type of engineering after I'd only been in for 2 weeks, and everybody else had been in for a semester. And so I just picked mechanical because I thought it was the most broad. And I think we only had 5. We had mechanical, electrical, civil, chemical, and nuclear. We had that was all the kinds of engineering we had to pick from at that time. And I really felt like that mechanical would be the most broad. So I just picked it based on that. And,
Got lucky.
It was like kind of like throw a dart.
Yeah.
And I was worried. At one time we were sitting in a class and we were designing cams. I didn't even know what a cam was. And so when I realized what it was, I went and I took a community college class right next to UVA at the community college there. And I took a class in car maintenance, and I learned how to change my oil, flush my radiator, gap my spark plugs, which you can't do anymore because everything's electronic ignition. and I really enjoyed it. And so I actually bought a set of tools and did my car maintenance for years and years. But then I went back and asked some of my so I was able to find out what was a cam, and it was camshaft, and what it really did, all of that. And I found that none of my classmates were really like, gigantically into mechanical either. Some of them knew a few things about it, but so after that, I learned all I could about mechanical stuff, because when anything broke, my roommates in college, who were all female, were, well, Bev's a mechanical engineer, she can fix that. And so I had to do it just to keep up my street cred on there. So,
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, and then I guess like kind of going along that path, we're talking a bit about like showing your competence in engineering as you move through school, but then also into your career. I guess speak a little bit about how else you've done that. Obviously, you went to community college, took some classes, so you knew that you had that information.
Yeah.
You could prove it. What other kinds of things do you do with that?
Yeah, and then once I started. Oh, and I was just going to say that I just remembered when I was in school, it was more men than women. But what I found when I went into school, and now especially even more while I'm in work, is that I found my tribe. I found my people who thought the same way as I did. I'd always been a person who wanted to fix things. You can tell them about that. I fix people too, besides things. And but I found a group of people that thought the same way and was interested. Engineers, we are interested in very nerdy things. We are very, we will sit and talk about stuff that nobody else considers even conversation. And, so it was like coming into a group of people that I felt really comfortable with, and it transcended male, female, age, anything, because I was in a group of people that I really, enjoyed what we were doing, and we were all interested in a lot of the same things. So that's one of the really important things as you're going through your career, is to make sure that you're not only in the right job, but you're with the right people that really enhance you and what you're doing. And so sometimes you can have to, switch jobs just to get a group of people that are more connected with who you are. And I think you did that in yours when you went in with your group there. So I don't know if I answered the question.
You're gonna tell that story about how when you first started receiving awards, you were the only woman.
Right.
And then how that's kind of changed.
Right. So I have received, I don't know, 6 or 7 awards from the Federal Energy Management Program, FEMP, which is under Department of Energy. So they're not part of the Navy or anything, but the Department of Energy does awards for different types of energy conservation and water conservation projects and that type of thing. And I got a few earlier on, and then I just got one recently last year. And in that, it's not a single award, it's for a team of people that worked on a project. And of course, on all the first of my awards that were 15 or 20 years ago, it was me and all guys. And then after, this last one that I did, there was 3 women and 3 men on the team. And it just is, but it just seems like a natural progression. And some of the people on the team I had worked with for several different years, and it's really cool to see that people that like their jobs and are really into it stay in the same, not necessarily the same job, but in the same field, and you end up working with them again, and it makes it more of a, like you say, a team effort and all that. And it just seems like women are just more naturally accepted. It's not, used to be so weird, when you would see a female in there. And when I'd be in a meeting, and a lot of times I'd be running the meeting, there'd be 20 people in there, and someone would assume that I was the secretary taking notes. And now, I don't have that issue where it is.
Yeah.
And, it's, it has changed. The face has changed.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of people that I've spoken to before I started this group were wondering about, like, how do I have this confidence to go forward and prove myself and know that, I can support what I'm doing in my work and it's quality and I can show everybody else. And how did you develop it? Did you always have confidence in yourself, or?
Yeah, I think I'm one of those people who just always thought that I don't know whether this is true or not. I always thought it had to do with something about being firstborn, that I'm just kind of arrogant and always think I know how to do things. And when I went, and that was one of the things when I was in high school, I was a straight A student. I was top, close to the top of the class, And so when I went to college, I knew it all. And when I was in the College of Arts and Science for the first semester, I did pretty well. And then I switched to engineering. Oh my God. So you learn how to realize I graduated not anywhere near with straight A's when I graduated engineering, but it just learned that there were so many levels, and it was so cool to get into an arena where you were actually, each year you had to have the classes before to be able to do what you were doing the next year and the next year. And I was just, it was tough. To take not being the very best at everything, and I had to learn to scale it back a bit. But I think
her confidence comes naturally. Yeah. That's what she's trying to say.
Love that.
Yeah.
Oh, I've missed this a little bit. If we can all shift a little here.
Okay. Sorry.
Someone said that they can't even see you, Bev.
Oh,
we don't want that.
That's ridiculous. All my confidence is gone.
There we
now.
go.
So
now it's perfect. Good to go. Hopefully that's better for everyone. They can see Bev. Good. Well, I guess, Christie, so you growing up, you saw your mom be successful in engineering and in a STEM field where was very unusual for women at the time to be working like that. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, as you can already tell, she's not what I would call like a stereotypical engineer. Like she's very vibrant, outgoing, very confident, very positive. And so I think a lot of that, there's a combination there of like, because both my parents are engineers growing up, but it was cool to see that my mom could do the same job as my dad, even though they had different careers. And I think that I grew up believing that I could like honestly do what I wanted to do, whatever I wanted to do. And I mean, I think that was somewhat of a theme of growing up in the 80s and 90s of, you can be whatever you want to be. But truly, I think as a woman, I didn't have any um misconceptions that I couldn't do something, and watching her almost kind of wear her like femalehood in engineering as like a badge of honor. Her license plate still used to be.
Yeah, it used to be.
Doesn't matter. It was for a very long time as I grew up. It was
engineer mom.
Engineer mom.
Oh,
Her
that's
license
awesome.
plate. So her engineering self is like really like a big part of her identity. And I think that made me feel like, I could do something just not typical, right?
Yeah.
That I could go into a field, whatever it was. I feel like I walked into, math classes, science classes thinking like, I can be good at this. My mom is good at this. Like, and so I think that definitely influenced my belief in what I was capable of, for sure.
Yeah, you had that role model directly in front of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Do you think it impacted your career path choice? And
it's interesting, like when I was in high school, like we would talk a lot about math and how I was good at math. And she was like, I really think you should potentially pursue a career in math and engineering. And I even like went to a, Society of Professional Women Engineers thing at UVA in high school, and sort of like, dabbled in that idea. But I found that not only just her influence on, you can be good at science and math, but also you can be the best version of yourself, whatever that is. And I never felt like pressure to be a specific type of person or woman. And she's always been a natural encourager. And so I feel like whatever her career path was, she would have like, parented a person to believe in themselves, right? And so a big part of that was just belief in, myself and my own choices. And so I knew for me that I wanted to do something that was like a little bit more relationship based, a little bit more people based. And so that kind of like influenced my path in communications. And it honestly is really just happenstance that I ended up in sort of a similar industry and kind of like landing near architecture and interiors. That wasn't necessarily my goal, but it's kind of cool that it landed
kind of
that
ended
way.
up that way.
Yeah, totally.
Happenstance. And then Bev, what was it like being a mom and being an engineer?
It gave me a really good chance, because at that point in my career, I had really gotten into the engineering, into just in the general of my general, working of my career, really liked what I did. And I get very intensive, very passionate about what I do. And I was really a workaholic. And so it was so good to have this almost like giant switch, like a reset switch that said, hey, somebody's got to go home at night. You can work during the day, but somebody has to go home at night and be there for the child. And so it gave me something very important enough to be able to kind of wrench my life from kind of being a little unbalanced as over into the work side. And as my husband Jerry would tell you right now, he probably thinks that I'm kind of edging back over into the workaholic side since I don't have kids to go home to. But it's just, when you like your job, it's something you enjoy. And so it really gave me a very good chance to really have to very carefully set my time up and organize myself and be able to make sure that I was organized for, the workday and then home. And friends of mine next door for one of my birthdays made this giant poster for me, and it had all the things that Bev did during the day. And there was like 20 items on there. And you go down and there's like 5 items. One's get up, one's get the kids up, get breakfast, get this, get everybody to, and all this. And there was one line out of 20 that said, go to work. And also that was how it tells you how crazy and all the things I had to do with their one line was associated with work, and there was 19, 19.
And you still managed to go to work and win awards. And these big projects.
So, and I think that that one thing that people don't realize is that when you've got kids and you're going to work, it's really good to have something that forces you to make sure I get all my work done in that time period. When you know you can work overtime, you tend to spread your work out over 10 hours or whatever when you would do it. Rather, when you are really focused and you've got to finish what you have to finish in that time, it gives you a little bit more of and I'm ADHD, I've got it, it gives you more focus capability.
Yeah, that's a good point. That like urgency is kind of automatically set there. Yeah. So it made you almost more efficient, but also more balanced.
Right. And it also helped me. I was at that point moving into project management, and which has really ended up being the real choice for me. Being an engineer, working on drafting boards, which I used to in the old days, before computers. That's kind of a singular type thing. But when you go into project management, you're managing problems with people, which, like Christie said, that seems to be our forte, is to have people involved with it a lot, to a great degree.
Yeah. And so a lot of the women that we've talked to here have talked about their career shifts as they had children. And what else did that look like for you? How did you manage making that shift and organizing all of those lists of things?
Well, I was trying to just think.
I mean, a big piece of it was your shift from doing consulting to doing work with the Navy.
Right. Back in the day, when you worked for a consulting engineering firm, they expected you to do a lot of unpaid overtime. And so at that point at the company I was working at, before I switched from the design company to the government, I worked for a year there after I had Christie, and I just realized that their mindset was that you really, in order to run my own jobs and to do what I needed to do on my projects and all, I really needed to do a lot of overtime. And so I felt like I really needed to switch careers, and not careers, but switch my job. And so I switched to going to the Navy. And at the time, it was going from commercial work to a government job, and I thought I was killing my career. But it was important enough to do it because of what I was doing. And it turned out I've done things with the Navy I would have never done. I've done wind turbines in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. I've done energy conservation in Rota, Spain. I've done energy projects from Maine all the way down through to South Carolina, and at different bases. And I would have never had that latitude if I had if I had stayed in the same position that I did. So
yeah, that's amazing. And you've like found your passion, and it's let you stay there.
It's let me stay there and see within the government, you can switch to different things. I've been an environmental engineer. These are all have done energy work in them, but I've switched around and had different titles: environmental engineer, mechanical engineer, supervisory mechanical engineer, general engineer, and we even had a fake title, energy engineer. And those were all different ones that were my names on my position description, So.
Yeah, that's amazing. I guess, how do we want to shift around here? Sorry.
Okay.
I normally have my my stuff written down, and now you all are getting a bird's eye view of it. But I guess, Christie, we kind of already talked about what it was like being in the architecture construction field, but on the marketing side. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
I mean, an interesting component really is just kind of like learning enough to feel comfortable in a room full of like more technical experts, right? So my background is more in communications and persuasive, presenting and things like that. And going into a field where I'm talking to other designers, architects, engineers, other like contractors, and clients and things, it puts you in a position where, you know, you're not a technical person, but you have to know enough to talk to folks and to feel comfortable. And I think one of the things about the industry is sometimes it's a challenging industry, right? And so like it can sometimes feel like people are very sort of like protective of their roles, protective of their expertise, and so can feel a little bit like, oh, we don't really want to let other people into this, you know, if you're not an expert too. I think over my career that's like softened a little bit, and I feel more accepted now in the industry than maybe I did when I first started.
Do you think that's your experience has grown, or do you think that's the industry has changed?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of both, right? Like I graduated into the recession in 2009, and that was a really tough time for the industry. And so I think everybody was scared about their jobs. Everybody was scared about, you know, how they were perceived. And so being brand new into the industry, you know, I was there to prove myself, but everybody else was trying to prove themselves too. And so I think that was like a little bit of like a tough thing of trying to feel accepted in the industry for a while. But I feel like as I got a little bit more confident in my skills and my ability, that started to sort of break in a little bit. And now I feel like I have enough perspective that even though I might not be the most technical person in the room, I still have a lot of value to bring to the table.
Yeah, definitely. And I know we beforehand had talked a little bit about that. And like even like Megan, who's on the call, does marketing with us too, and she can vouch for that as well. Like in a room of people who are engineers speaking and thinking about all the technical things and the nerdy stuff. And you're still trying to be part of that team and
totally
have to speak a little bit. But
and I was like I would say blindly confident in the beginning based on, you know, some upbringing. But I remember early on in my career being like basically the newest person there and like raising my hand, giving input, offering ideas. And later, you know, once my bosses got to know me a little bit better, them being like, yeah, that was kind of like surprising that you were so, you know, just like willing to just be like, oh, I have an idea. And them almost being like taken aback, like, why is she doing this? Like, she doesn't know anything. But later realizing like that was an asset. And I was just naive enough to not realize that maybe people thought that was a little odd. But I had a very good boss when I first started in my career who was a woman. She was our office was architecture and interiors, so there was plenty of women in the office at large, but there weren't a lot of female leaders in the office. But my direct boss was a woman, and she was an incredible mentor my first year out of college. And I have found that working with women leaders and being mentored by women in the industry is a really special thing, because they have sort of somewhat similar experiences and tend to bring a little bit more like empathy and sort of a relational approach to how they relate to their coworkers. I think there's plenty of men that do that in public or in, you know, the office as well. But in my experience, women just tend to bring it more frequently. So I was really lucky to have a woman who mentored me early on in my career, which I feel like helped build my confidence.
Yeah, I think that's super important. And part of what I'm hoping to do here is make those connections for people to have the mentors.
Exactly.
Just like that.
Someone safe to like ask questions and be vulnerable with. Totally.
Yeah, you already are doing it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, this whole series has been fabulous.
Yeah, thank you.
So, yeah.
And kind of moving right into your team now is led by women.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. And I'd like to hear a bit about how that got started and how it was building it.
Yeah, so Lauren Stewart and Kristina Kern started the company in 2012. And they're just like good friends in college that decided to start a company together. And I was kind of like looking to make my next move and starting to just try and get more involved in the design community in Richmond. And they were doing some events, so I kind of just started lingering and hanging out near them. I learned a little bit about their company. I was like, wow, they're so cool. Like these two women who are like almost my age and they started their own company. This is amazing. And so I just started hanging out and like hung out long enough that they asked me to help out and started becoming friends with them, and eventually was able to find a role with them, which was really incredible. And the biggest shift between my first role and working with Lauren and Kristina, their background was in interior design, and then they started this company doing branding and interiors. And they would be working on, you know, some type of project in front of me, and I was kind of there to help out with marketing. But they would be working on a design and I would be nearby and I would sort of ask like, oh, like, what are you working on? Like, tell me about that. And I would say like, oh, can I like provide some input? And they would just always hands down, absolutely. Like, what do you think we should do? Okay, I'm thinking this, like, what do you think that looks like? And my opinion and my perspective was always validated from the moment I stepped into working with them. And that just made me feel like we were all equals all the time, no matter what. And obviously they're at the end of the day doing the work and they're the owners of the company and they have the last say and everything, but they never made me feel like my perspective wasn't essential. And that was really amazing. And so that's something that I continue to try to pull into the work that we do with like our team and try to make sure everybody, regardless of what their role is, has a say in what we do, because our team is really interdisciplinary. We do graphics, we do interiors, we do signage, we do websites, like we do a lot of different styles of design. And a lot of the folks on our team have kind of atypical paths into their careers. I think that's really opened it up to make it that everybody's opinion is valid all the time, on design, on process, on, big picture ideas for the company. And I think that that's been a big part of the culture that we've tried to create, is very like, just everybody here is valid and your input is important.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And that definitely leads into my next question for both of you is what differences, if any, do you see on teams that are led by women? Like getting those more varied opinions and inputs.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Yeah. We had a situation a couple of years ago, and one of where we do projects, and so we have execution meetings where we go through, and there'd be in our whole group maybe 50 people on a Teams meeting, and then we go through where are you on your project and go down, that sort of thing. And we're all project managers on the call, and we used to have a very authoritarian type person run the call. And even though all of us were good at our jobs, well known, and it was considered a tough job in the situation, he would ask some specific questions, and if something wasn't the way he thought it should be, he would just attack the person on the phone. And it was so horrific. It was unbelievable to me. And the government has this thing where you fill out these sheets that say, how do you feel about, your job and, your morale and everything? And and one of the people in our group named him and named what he did and all this stuff. And like a year later, he still was in the company. He was still in our group, but they moved him out of that position. Wow. And they happened to move a female into that position. And she is not only really technical and good at what she does, but she's also of an instructor mind. And so when someone would do something that wasn't exactly correct on there, she would say, let me take this to be a teaching moment. And she would actually help, and it would help not just that one person, but the 50 people that were on there. And he couldn't see that the whole thing, what he was doing was hurting the morale of 50 people. And she was actually building up the whole group so they wouldn't have to go back and do that, and it just, she became a little bit of a mentor to me. And this is in the project management realm. And I've only been I've been in project management to a degree, but this was specific to project management in the government, which has a lot more rules and regulations. So I was in a specific project management group rather than an energy group then. And I've only been working with her for 5 years. And she took me aside and helped me because, a lot of the rules were different. The energy project rules were not the same as the regular energy resilient projects, so that's great mentoring.
That is a great story. That's a specific example.
It's a very specific example. We were like, thank God.
Oh, that's awesome. So, and we are actually getting close to the end of our time, so I'll open it up really quickly. to anyone who has questions of either Christie or Bev, we'd love to hear it. We've also got a couple final questions that we can go through if nobody has anything, but we'd love to hear from the audience.
Yeah.
And you can unmute yourself and ask, or type in the chat or in the Q&A. Make sure that I can look at those. No, okay. And while people are typing anything, I will ask you guys, what's been your proudest accomplishment in your career so far?
Start with Christie. I need to think a little.
Mine really has been, I mean, I've got answers for like specific projects and stuff, and it's always nice to do a project that you feel like is impactful and fun and collaborative and beautiful. But honestly, becoming a partner at my firm was like a really big deal to me. I had been there for like about 8 years and was, like I was saying before, basically their second employee. And I felt like I had a lot of influence in the growth of the company, and I felt like I found my people. I was like, I don't really want to go anywhere else. I can't see another job for myself, and wanted to be a part of the future in like a sort of permanent way. And so I kind of started planting those seeds with my business partners and sort of told them like, hey, I would really like to be considered as a potential partner. And then after a little while, they offered me partnership, and that just, it was a big validating moment that, you know, the folks that I work with felt my value and the impact that I had had. And so that's been really awesome and really special and really cool to be able to then take everything that I've learned in my career and share that like with my team and like help my employees grow in the same way. So that's been very cool.
Yeah. I guess from the standpoint just of personal is that personally, I do a lot. The Navy uses the Federal Energy Management Plan contract vehicles to do energy projects, and they're basically financed energy projects. And that group does seminars on the projects and the types of projects, and training seminars. And it's been really fun the last few years. Every time I've been at one of those seminars for training people, halfway through the project, halfway through a talk, someone that is giving the talk will look up in the audience and say, well, that's Bev's going to have to answer that one, and will hand me the microphone in the middle of 200 or 300 people and say, Bev, what when we were working on that project 2 years ago, what did you do? And I'll say, well, this is how, and they'll hand me the microphone back. And I felt like that I have gained an expertise and a following within the Department of Energy, which energy is my big thing. And the Navy, energy is a little tiny thing.
Yeah.
It's, the mission is let's get the ships out and the naval aviators out. And, that's our whole thing, is supporting that mission. But Department of Energy, their whole mission is energy. And to have achieved a certain level within that group of expert has really been, I think, the best. The best.
You have the recognition from your peers that you're going to know the answer.
And that's
they can come to you for that.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Janice says, thank you both. What great information you've provided, especially regarding ways to build self-confidence in the industry.
Yeah,
thank
for
you.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think since we're getting so close to 1 o'clock here, I'll just finish up with one final question from both of you. What advice do you have to young professionals looking to grow themselves and find their passion in what they do?
Yeah. We were talking about this on the phone yesterday, and I think I have kind of like one thing I always say when we talk to, like, we go do a fair amount of presentations for students, like Virginia Tech and VCU and things like that. And my big 2 things are, one, just get good at the small stuff, right? And don't take pride in the tasks that feel menial, right? Because those are the ways that when a boss, a colleague, someone asks you to help out with a project or a role that maybe doesn't feel like it is fully, using all of your skill set, but at the same time is important, and you show consistently that you can do something and be reliable and do something with, a high level of execution, it shows people that you are trustworthy, and then you get asked to do more things, right? And so that was always my big thing, was early in my career, is just anything I was asked to do, I just tried to do it like 1.5, especially the small stuff, right? Because the small stuff is easy. So it's like, okay, well, you want me to do that small thing, like I'll just do it insanely good. And you're like, wow, we should get her something harder to do. And sorry, I'm gonna say two more things actually.
This is so unusual, her talking more than me.
The next one is taking initiative. I think that's like the hardest thing to teach other people, and especially young people, when you're new and you maybe don't entirely feel confident or comfortable in the space. Just taking initiative to do something that you think needs to be done without being asked is like, again, one of the biggest ways I feel like I've grown in my career is by saying like, well, you kind of asked me to do this and I did that, but I also did this other thing, which I thought would be really helpful. And that's, again, allowed me to show something I can do that maybe nobody's asking me to do yet. And the last thing is just like, don't take yourself too seriously. I feel like the formality sometimes that people bring to the workplace, and I mean, this is biased because our office is very casual, our culture is very casual, and I realize like some places, especially like the government, there's like a certain level of formality that is required. But again, I think just like your own personality and, job and your role, and I think if anything, you're never someone who brings too much seriousness to the table. You're always someone who's like, even when something is important, you're still trying to like make people feel comfortable and like make it fun and like, let's have a good time. At the same time, we are doing a good job. And I think that just keeps things lighthearted and makes you fun to be around and makes people want to work with you.
Yeah. And the people you work with are some of the most important things.
Right. You spend a lot of time
with them.
Exactly.
So, having a good relationship and trying to get along is really good.
Did you have any other ones?
I had one that I thought of. This is one that I was not good at, and that is I would get into a job and then I would just stay with it, and circumstances caused me to change jobs. So the one from when I moved from Richmond to Newport News, then I changed jobs based on logistics, and then from when I changed jobs from working for a company to working for the government, it was because I needed a more better work balance and less overtime, less unpaid overtime. I was so absolutely stunned when I found that the government paid for overtime. We didn't get time and a half. We got straight time for overtime. And I was like, really? People get paid for overtime? It was such a new concept to me. But both of those career jumps, or both of those job changes, were really good. So don't be afraid to change jobs if you don't have what you want exactly. And especially when you're younger, it's a lot easier. And when you kind of get where sometimes you get that feeling that you're in it and you can't go somewhere else and feel comfortable, but try, if you really, and and you can do things like Christie did, where you go see other things, events that people put on, or some like this seminars, you see a little bit about, you see some people maybe you might want to work with, and you get contacts and look at that, because, one of the big things that will hold you back is if you're afraid to change a job, and you might be able to find your dream job that way. So, and not taking yourself too seriously. I don't know. I don't know about other fields, but technical fields, man, we think we are so hot shit that we have got, that we just feel like, we have to be serious about what we do. Well, we really don't, it's just a job. When it comes down to it, it's just a job.
For sure.
Absolutely. Oh, well, thank you both so much for joining us. This was awesome. I hope everybody enjoyed what we had to say in the different format a little bit.
Yeah.
We'd love to get some feedback on that, what worked well, what didn't work well. And also, please mark your calendars for July 17th For our next Women in Construction speaker series, we'll be speaking with Christina Preisner, who is the president of ACEC Virginia. I believe Megan has put the registration link in the chat there, and you all can click on that and get more information. We'd love to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Good. Thank you.